All right, William Shakespeare the Poet. We know him as a playwright, but he also was fabulous. Some background. In the Elizabethan period, which is the time Shakespeare lived, it's also the time period that Queen Elizabeth I ruled England, which is why it's called the Elizabethan period. Poetry was considered romantic and educated. Society looked at poets positively, unlike playwrights. So this is interesting because Shakespeare was both. Why did he do this? Well, partly he did it because he wanted to prove that he could do it. All great writers want to show their audience, I'm not just pigeonholed into one thing. I can do this. Think about actors. You get actors who play the same types of roles over and over. Hugh Jackman, who only plays Wolverine, he's been pigeonholed. Well, he's trying. These guys want to show I can do other things. All right. And another reason why he wrote poetry was because there was a group of people gaining power in England called Puritans. They didn't like plays, and they wanted to close them all down. And so it was a societal issue as well. So Shakespeare didn't have to worry about them being closed down, but it was scandalous to write plays, so he had to kind of walk that fine line. So first, some facts. Shakespeare wrote 154 poems. They are called sonnets because that's a specific type of poetry. They were first published in 1609 without his permission. They didn't have copyright law like we do today, so it was very likely that whoever collected his poems and published them got the money, and Shakespeare didn't. We don't know that for sure, though. Okay, so let's talk about Shakespeare and his genius. All right, so his brilliance as a poet lies in his style. First, he wrote each poem in the form of a sonnet, which is 14 lines of alternating rhyme, except for the last 2 lines, which is called a couplet, and that had consecutive rhyme. Shakespeare's sonnets follow what was called iambic pentameter, which is a pattern of 5 pairs of unstressed and stressed syllables in each line. So you'd have, say, one word with 2 sounds. You would have unstressed and stressed, and that pattern would repeat for every single line of Shakespeare's sonnets. That's hard to do. Okay, so let's take a look at some work, and I'll show you how to do this iambic pentameter things. So first, sonnet 18, that's what it is, and it shows his rhyme scheme with the alternating rhyme scheme measured in letters. Each different sound acquires its own letters. So let's take a look at that. So, shall I compare thee to a summer's day? That is, the first sound is A. So that sound, because it's the first, is A. We use alphabetical letters to identify sounds. Okay, the last sound, thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rit and day, different sounds, so it's B. So we get alternating. May and day rhyme, so that's the same sound. That's A, A, A. 8, temperate. It's a bit of a stretch, but that's what Shakespeare would have done. So you're starting to see this pattern. Shines. We don't have that sound in the first few lines, so that's C. That's the third different. Dimmed. Again, that's different. Clines, shines. Hey, we have that. Hopefully you're starting to see the pattern. Okay? And so this is your couplet. And in most Shakespeare couplets, they are indented. C and D have the same rhyme, so they get the same end symbol. So this is how we identify rhyme scheme. A, B, right? And we know it's alternating rhyme scheme. So this is the rhyme scheme. Now, if we were to look at sounds, and we're not going to spend too much time on this today, but you're talking iambic pentameter. In this case, what you would have is this would be your unstressed shall I. It has to do with the amount of oxygen going through your throat. Shall would be your unstressed. So I'm going to kind of do this a little differently. I'll put a dot or a star. Shall I would be long, so that gets an accent like that. Come, short, pair. So this is what it looks like. The. So I know you're like, wait, the sounds like I say it longer. I agree, but this is what Shakespearean scholars have identified, and they're smarter than us. So we just let it go. So this is what it looks like, and I apologize, A goes with that asterisk. Some ers, and then last sound, long. So you've got pair, a pair, a pair, a pair, and a pair. You have 5 pair of feet, or 5 feet of meters, 5 pair of unstressed and stressed sounds, and this makes it iambic. An iamb is a foot of meter, pentameter is 5. Meter is the act of rhythm. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meter. There's your pentameter. Iambs. These are iambs or feet. I know, you're probably saying, wow, that's a lot. It is. So why did Shakespeare study poetry? Well, there's a few reasons that scholars have identified, and we'll just kind of briefly go through them. The first one was because when the plague struck in the 1590s, the theaters closed, and Shakespeare needed to make money. Can't do it if he can't perform his plays in London. So he wrote poems and got paid for them. This ties into, the second reason ties into the first reason, is that his patron, the person who was paying him, wanted him to write it. You and I both are going to do whatever the guy who's paying our bills wants us to do, within reason. And the third reason, as it was a guess, was because he probably wanted to show people what he could do. You know, we all want to show, hey, I'm pretty smart. And we can assume that Shakespeare was just like the rest of us. He was a normal man. So Shakespeare's sonnets are pretty cool. Another fact about Shakespeare's sonnets that you may not know is that he didn't title his sonnets. They're literally titled Sonnet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 154. And they cover a lot of different topics. Love, nature, okay, being the two big ones. So that's Shakespeare the Poet.